Folks, what is up? It is Monday night, hours before the Bills kick off against the Pats. And this is producer Steve coming at you hot with the very first episode of Two Goalies, One Mic, where the Buffalo roam. We're going to talk picks. We're going to talk prospects. We're going to talk about the young kids that are going to make the Buffalo Sabres truly incredible one day. This is a very new show. I want to thank Dwayne, Cully, and the Trainwreck Sports family for giving me this little sideshow of mine. I hope it's entertaining. Hope you guys keep coming back to watch. With that said, being a new thing, format's kind of loose right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to focus on everybody all at once, every single episode, or if I'm going to dive deep on specific individuals, specific teams. Today, one, because I have this dope new Paterka jersey, but two, because they basically lost an entire week due to COVID postponements, I want to talk about the Rochester Americans, just an hour down the road. So the Rochester Americans currently are 8th in the AHL, second in their division, with a current record of 6-4 in their last 10, 11-6 for the year and 17 games played. Some teams have played some more. There are some teams out there with 19, about 22 games, I think looks like the max. But for the 17 games they've played, they're 11-6, .647. Definitely, the leader of their division is the Utica Comets, of course, with a commanding 16-1 record, best record in the AHL. But, right behind them are the Rochester Americans, securely in the number 2 spot. The next closest team being the Cleveland Monsters with a 9-5 record in 19. Just chomping at the heels. And the fun thing about Rochester is they have yet to lose in overtime, which is to say it doesn't, they don't lose. They don't lose in overtime. They don't get taken to overtime, and when they're there, they don't lose. But they also can usually beat your club in 60 minutes, which is pretty nice to say. The success of this team is largely on the backs of some of the rookies that have come into the lineup today. J.J. Paterka, of course, 18 points, 4 goals, 14 assists in 17 games. But, of course, the headline, the big story is the full rookie season for Jack Quinn. 24 points, 11 goals, and 13 assists in 17 games. I believe this is still a league-leading point total, even with having missed a week. Jack Quinn is on nothing short of an absolute heater. Insane pace, 1.41 points per game. A -2 plus minus, only 10 penalty minutes. 4 power play goals, 1 shorty. He's just incredible this year. And that's not to say that it's just Jack Quinn and J.J. Paterka out there making a mess for everybody. Michael Mersch, Sean Malone, some of the veterans of the team. Michael Mersch, 17 points in 17 games, 10 goals, 7 assists. Sean Malone, 15 points in 17 games, 6 goals, 9 assists. The people who have been around for a minute, they're making an impact. They're showing us why they're year in and year out still a part of this club, while showing these young kids like Jack Quinn and JJ the way to succeed. One of the newer additions to the roster is, of course, Peyton Krebs, who was acquired in the trade where Jack Eichel, the generation center for the Buffalo Sabres, of course, went out to Las Vegas in exchange for Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuck, and picks. We love picks. Picks become players, and players are people I can talk about someday. But Peyton Krebs, in his first 10 games with Rochester, 1 goal, 6 assists for 7 points. It took him a second to find that chemistry, but pretty much once he got put on a power play unit with JJ and Jack, it was all over. Those kids just know exactly how to find each other. They know how to thread the needle, and they know how to finish it once they get it on their stick in the right spot. These kids are just insane together, and the level of chemistry, the level of production, it's a beautiful thing to see when it comes to Western New York hockey. Recently, Mark Jankowski has been called up to the lineup of the Buffalo Sabres. He has only played 1 game as of right now. He has yet to put any points on the board. But Mark Jankowski is an interesting player because he has been an NHL player for multiple seasons. This particular season, he started in the AHL, getting picked up by the Rochester Americans with the sole intent of cracking an NHL lineup. And now here we are. He's in there. Arttu Ruotsalainen, of course, has been called back down to the Rochester Americans, so it stands to reason that Jankowski may be taking his place somewhere in the bottom six. Brett Murray, of course, is also a Amherst who has cracked the Buffalo Sabres lineup. He's only played about 6 games this year, but in that he's generated his first NHL goal, 2 assists, 3.6 games. Not bad for a big guy, and more to the point, not all of that was done but just by planting himself directly in the net, in front of the net, which for a guy of his size is exactly where you'd expect to see him. He's cycling the puck, he's getting the puck up the ice. His size does not translate so much to speed, and in the NHL, it's becoming pretty apparent that, a lack of speed with size can be a detriment to your game, but he's finding a way to contribute more often than not, and it's nice to see one of the younger kids get a look. But of course, one of the newer stories lately is that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to get another NHL look. The revolving door of goaltenders in Buffalo this year has been a very familiar and also upsetting story. Of course, we started the season with Craig Anderson and Dustin Takarsky as the tandem. Craig Anderson's injuries have gone from week to week to month. I honestly have no idea if we're going to see him again this season. When you're 40 years old and you face an injury like that, that just might be the end of your career. And, honestly, more power to him. The few games that he did get to play with the Buffalo Sabres, he was playing smart hockey. He didn't have to work hard because he was working smart. He's been playing the position for about well over half of his life. He knows where he needs to be. He knows how to position himself pretty much perfectly to cut off the overwhelming majority of shooting opportunities from young and old players all over the NHL. He was doing a pretty good job. Dustin had a few games where he was standing on his head, keeping Buffalo in it when they should have been out against teams that were much better suited to dominate, and yet somehow we continued to compete. Dustin Takarsky, of course, now playing a little bit more like what we imagined Dustin Takarsky to play like. And now he himself is now out on COVID protocols. Aaron Dell is just a stone's throw of an improvement above Carter Hutton, who this year is easily the worst goaltender in the entire National Hockey League. So Aaron Dell is just a fraction better than that. Recently, the Buffalo Sabres acquired Malcolm Subban from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for future considerations, which is a nice way of saying for a bag of pucks. And his first start against the Carolina Hurricanes had a similar score, 6-2, 7-4. Some of these are empty netters, but a lot of them are getting past them, and they shouldn't be getting past them. And a lot of people were like, well, Malcolm Subban hasn't played in a little while. He hasn't played an NHL game all year. But he has recently played in the AHL as recently as, the very end of November. So he's been on the ice. He's been playing. He just hasn't been playing at the NHL level yet this season. And that's all to say that now Malcolm Subban, Aaron Dell, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen are all options for the next start tomorrow night against Anaheim. Obviously, since that game's 24 hours from now, I can't tell you exactly who's going to start. It might be UPL. It might be giving Malcolm another chance. I don't know. But against a team with players like Drysdale, Zegras, Troy Terry on his heater, and some of those veterans making contributions in a way that they haven't made in a few years, it's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. A player that I've kind of had in the back of my mind is a right-handed defenseman, Oskari Locksman. His turnover game is still not ideal, but with the vacancy that's likely going to come if and when Colin Miller is dealt at the trade deadline, there is going to be, a very tangible vacancy on that third D pairing. And you could easily see a kid like Oskari Locksman, who's currently with 16 games, 1 goal, 11 assists for a total of 12 points in that time. You could potentially see a kid like him get slotted up. You could also see the Buffalo Sabres prioritize trying to pair some of these left-handed defensemen on the right side, see if they can actually contribute on their offside. So that way maybe potentially a player like Casey Fitzgerald or Matthias Samuelsson, people who have been a part of the Rochester lineup for a minute, kids who have yet to get that honest to goodness look at the NHL level. Perhaps they're the ones that get slotted in, but just by virtue of playing the right-handed side naturally, it's possible that Oskari Locksman is going to get that look later in this year. So it's going to be interesting to see those three kind of compete with one another to see who's going to get that slot. If and when defensive vacancies arise, if for nothing, no other reason, injury, but more likely Colin Miller's probably going to get dealt at the trade deadline. Maybe Robert Hagg as well. I'm not positive. Robert Hagg, he's a very serviceable, good third D pairing guy. He's eating pucks like Kirby. So honestly, I don't see any reason to deal him when we're paying him what we're paying him. But if somebody's willing to give us something good enough at the trade deadline for him, I also can't see any good reason to pass up on that either. Basically, if the offer isn't good enough for either one of them, I don't see any reason to deal them. Obviously, Colin Miller, a right-handed defenseman, is going to get you a premium just based on what Rasmus Ristolainen got us, being an infinitely worse defenseman. But that said, I do see one of those three top defensemen, Locksman, Fitzgerald, or Samuelsson, cracking the lineup later in this year. So that's all to say. The Rochester Americans are in a good place. They're doing good things. It's not a bad time to be a fan of Western New York hockey, even with the Buffalo Sabres in the state that they're in. You know, obviously they're not getting the W's. It's a little bit upsetting. It gets a little bit frustrating when your team scores multiple goals, especially when going into the beginning of the season, the big question mark was, who the hell is going to finish for this team? Who's going to put pucks in the net? Jeff Skinner wasn't doing it for a minute. Casey Middlestat was still just trying to find his game. We didn't expect Tage Thompson to be the guy he is, but on the forward side of things, the Donnie Granato system is paying dividends. Kyle Okposo on a 6-game point streak. Zemgus Girgenson's doing things. Tage Thompson being a beast. Casey Middlestat's already got a goal back cracking the lineup since getting injured in the home opener, just like Yoki Haru did. The offensive core of the Buffalo Sabres is, although they're not getting the W's, they're doing good things. So it's a good time to be a fan of Western New York hockey right now, and particularly out there in Rochester. I don't get out to Rochester as much as I'd like to, but thankfully I've got the AHL TV package. I spend a little bit of money every year just to watch the Rochester Americans. You can pay for a package that lets you watch every single team in the league, or you can pick a package that lets you just watch the one team you care about, which is likely the farm team of the NHL team that you're a big fan of. In this case, for me, that's the Rochester Americans. I think because I had a membership last year, it was given to me this year at a discount. So, you buy in a little bit expensive one year, the year after that, it gets cheaper. They want return customers. So that said, I have yet to have an issue with any aspect of my AHL TV subscription. If you want to follow these guys, that would obviously be the easiest way to do it. I can't really advocate for any third-party means of watching such broadcasts, but also, the quality of the AHL TV program is pretty good. It's definitely not NHL tier, but it's still good. You definitely get to see everything that you need to see. Sometimes the audio for the away team can be a little rough, depending on the sound recording of the broadcasters, the color commentary. So sometimes you got to hear the home commentary when you're watching the away games. But that's honestly been my only complaint. Everything else has been pretty great. But that's all to say. This has been a fun episode about the Rochester Americans. It's been a fun first episode. Again, this is a fast and loose concept. We don't even know what this show is going to be yet. So that said, if there are specific prospects, picks, players, teams you want me to focus on, let me know who you want me to shift my eyes to in the comments, because I don't want this to just be the Jack Quinn show. I don't want this to just be about the Americans. I love the Americans, but there are a lot of picks. There are a lot of prospects across a lot of leagues, across a lot of teams, and across a lot of countries. Sometimes these kids are playing while I'm still asleep or I'm off at work because, 10 a.m. for me is actually 6 o'clock for them. So I want to keep my eyes on everybody because, with the team in the state that it is, production it can get you on the lineup quicker than you think. So this has been the very first episode of Where the Buffalo Roam, a sideshow of Two Goalies, One Mic, all under the Trainwreck Sports family. And just like every Two Goalies, One Mic broadcast, this is brought to you by Outlet Liquor. It is the place to buy a case, so don't haste. Once again, I'm producer Steve. Thank you for watching. And as always, let's go Buffalo.